Dan here, hope you're doing well today. In this lesson I'm going to show you a walking jazz blues bass line. Now you're probably already familiar with the normal 12-bar blues, which has your 1, 4, 5 chords. That's something very basic, something you should definitely know as a bass player. A jazz blues, the jazz element, basically just makes it a little bit more complicated. More chords, which equals a bit more harmony and a bit more opportunity for improvising. So the first thing to do is to really get inside the chord progression, and here it is. We have 12 bars, that makes it a 12-bar blues, and we were loosely based around dominant chords, the B flat 7, that's the sort of key we're in. So we've got the B flat 7, that's the 1 chord. Now B flat 7 means B flat dominant 7th, and as bass players, we really need to get inside the chord tones, okay? Meaning the notes from the arpeggio. That's a B flat dominant 7th arpeggio. I've got plenty of free PDFs of this. What I'll put a link below. One link where you can download the PDF, the backing track, plus the various different shapes. So don't worry too much about having to memorize all the shapes for now, but you will need to know these eventually. And not just in one octave, which is this. If I'm on the root there, I also need to know, if I go in this direction, what the notes of the arpeggio are. So that's your 1 chord, that's your B flat 7, okay? And E flat 7, it's the same quality of chord. So I can just jump to the E flat, which is on the 6th fret of the A string. And I can just play the same arpeggio, and that's going to be great. Also, when I'm here, I need to know descending and ascending. As a bass player, you need to know your fretboard inside out. So that's your 1 to your 4 chord, then we're back to the B flat 7, the 1. So far, so fairly normal. Now, in terms of a walking bass line, let's just talk about that. A walking bass line is characterized by notes on every quarter note. We're at 120 beats per minute here, so that's kind of roughly this rhythm. Okay, but subdividing within those rhythms are swing. So these are the beats. So you've got swing 8s, da, 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 and triplets. Okay, so every beat has an underlying sort of meter and pulse that you need to be aware of. And that means you can inject more rhythm into it. Da, da, da. There's your triplet. 1, 2, 3. That's in one beat. Okay, so what I did there was just know my arpeggio inside out. I just went up the arpeggio, but just with this rhythm. It's a good way to practice, by the way. If you're practicing something new like a scale or an arpeggio, inject a bit of rhythm into it, and it just will sound a little bit less boring, okay? What we want to do is we want to connect up the chords in musical ways. And often that means stuff like this. Okay, so I started on the B flat. And I walked chromatically up to the E flat. That's a very common thing. So I just went B flat C, fret by fret. You're going to land on the E flat, beat 1 of bar 2. Okay, I don't want to get there too early, so I wouldn't do this. I've arrived too early at the E flat. So that's a nice little chromatic walk up. And just going down, E flat, D flat, chromatically down to the B flat 7 again. Here I need to know my arpeggio just equally as well as I do here. You will fall back on things that you know, like I do that a lot, okay? I probably learnt this from soul players, actually, but I'm on a B flat on the 1st fret. And this little pattern here, it's a major pentatonic. When I get to the G, I know that's a major 6. These are intervals I'm talking about. And as a bass player, you need to understand what those mean, and you need to know what they sound like. I know that right next door to that, 1 fret higher, is the 7 that's in that chord symbol, okay? And as a bass player, you need to outline the rhythm, with these quarter notes and these 8s and these triplets, but equally as important is the harmony. So I know that just sounds, doesn't it? Sounds really bluesy and soulful, and it's something I've learned. And whenever I see that chord symbol, I'm going there. Right, let's move on. On the last bar, the first line, we've got an F minor 7, B flat 7, which leads us to E flat 7. Now that is a 2-5 of E flat. I'll explain that. In the key of B flat major, the 2 chord is a C minor 7, the 5 is an F7, and the 1 chord is a B flat major 7. That's a 2-5-1. It's a very, very common jazz harmonic device. 2-5-1. Now what we're doing here is we're doing a 2-5, but one that leads us to E flat 7, and this is the, I guess this is the jazz element of jazz blues. You know, you wouldn't see this in a sort of B.B. King track. It just wouldn't be right for that. So we got an F minor 7, E flat 7. Here's something I would do. I just did root notes there. So you go from the beginning. Very simple notes, injecting a little bit of rhythm. As you're learning the chord progression, you don't have to go, you know, full pace into a walking bass line. If you're new to this, just do root notes and just try to get your head around it nice and slowly. So we're at now the second line. We've got E flat 7. I must add at this point that there are many, many different types of jazz blues. This is one that I just wrote pretty much on the spot. There are lots of different things you can do, but let's go with this for now. E flat 7. Then we've got this E with a circle. Another way you would see this written is an E with a little D-I-M. That's E diminished. And it's a really lovely sounding kind of connecting chord, if you like. So we've got E flat 7. There's your E diminished. Okay, we've got an E, a G, and basically we're just going up in minor thirds every time, which gives you a very simple, easy pattern to learn as a bass player. So we got E flat 7. Interestingly enough, when we do the E flat 7 triad, the 3rd and the 5th, those notes are the same when we go up to the E diminished. Then we've got B flat 7. We've got a G7. And this is the 6th chord, okay? Now, when I just mentioned the harmonized B flat major scale from before, this is something I've done a few lessons on. I'll link to them. You get like B flat major 7, C minor 7, D minor 7, E flat major 7, F7, G minor 7. I'll stop there. So the 6th chord in the key of B flat is G minor 7, and yet here it's a G7. This is a dominant chord. And this is just really, you know, this is what characterizes jazz blues, the use of these dominant chords. I could, I guess, just have easily put a G minor 7 there, but I wanted it to sound a bit bluesier, if you like. So kind of converted, sort of reharmonized that to a G7. It's got a very strong pull anyway. To the C minor 7, this is the last line now. And this is just a very, very simple 2, F7, 5, and then you've got your B flat to your 1. And that 2-5 again, it's just something that you'll hear in a lot of jazz standards is a 2-5-1, something definitely to practice. Let's zero in on that 2-5-1, okay? So we've got a C minor 7. It's your C minor 7 arpeggio, F7. It's a good way to practice it, just without really doing anything too musical with it, just up and down. F7, then B flat 7. And then after that you can start to think about ways to make it sound a little bit more like a walking jazz bass line. So here, C minor 7, I'm going up the triad. If I ever say things that you don't understand like triad, then you need to learn those. I have a very sort of comprehensive beginner, sort of intermediate bass course that goes through all this stuff, plus plenty of free lessons that goes through what triads, arpeggios, all this stuff are. So again, link below, but you just need to be on top of this. So C minor triad, that's a G, and I'm just going to come down chromatically. That's notes from outside the scale. That's what chromatic means. Chroma means color, and it adds color to your lines. Okay, so I'm on the F now. I'm just walking down with that little rhythm. Da, 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 that's your swing rhythm. Last 2 bars. 1, 6, 2, 5. Just doing roots there. There, a little bit more rhythm injected into it, and a little more chromatics. Chromatic, you can really lead up to the target note, G in this case, from like frets below or frets above. Think about it that way. Either way, it's a very kind of obvious signal that you're moving to another chord. It's a very good thing to use in your bass lines. Here I'm just, going a bit more into it by adding a few of these ideas that we're using. So one thing I haven't mentioned, which I will now, is scale notes. I've talked about arpeggios or chord tones and how important those things are, and that you need to know them. And what about this? This is your B flat 7 chord. Now, that chord comes from a scale. What scale? When you see a 7, you can think Mixolydian. That's this. Okay, so we don't have time in one bar to play all those notes, but if I started on the B flat up here and just descended, I'm very close. So I get to an F, and the next chord's an E flat. So this is a very lovely sort of contoured line here. Let's go to the E flat and it's the same. You can do a Mixolydian over that. Same thing. Now this is just a sort of walking bass tip here. If I do the same thing there, I start on an E flat and I descend that Mixolydian scale. I've arrived at a B flat 1 beat early. So what I'm going to do here is stick in a little chromatic note. Basically the fret either side of the B flat, because I don't want to arrive at that before I need to. And this is just something that you figure out really with a little bit of practice, and you've got the backing track to practice to, of course. And then we've got B flat 7. Okay, let's just see that. What I love personally, you see me looking here, I've got a Hercules iPad stand, I've got my iPad here. What I love when I'm reading chord symbols is just the freedom that you have to do whatever you like. And jazz is, after all, an improvising genre. It's an improvising style of music. So there, I'm explaining to you things that I'm doing that are just coming out freely. And they're coming out freely because I've got my technique in order. I know the underlying rhythms, the swing and the quarter note. And I know the notes that sound well and devices like chromaticism and everything I've talked to you in the lesson about, okay? So when you're practicing, just get a piece of paper down and write some of this stuff down and work on this. A little bit every day, you'll get a little bit better. So like there, sort of something I tend to do. So we've got F, and that's the flat third of the F minor 7 chord. It's just standard. You ever see an F minor 7? Or any minor 7 chord? The patterns, the sounds, they're always going to be the same. So also the movement of 2 to 5, that's always going to be like that. Or if you go down. So I'm on the B flat 7 now. But pretty funky sound there. It's just your root, flat 7, 5, and then your octave, flat 7, 5, root. I really urge you to just make sure that you know any one of these arpeggios inside out, starting from the 5th, starting from the root, starting from the octave. I don't know why I'm going into this feel, but I'm just making something up as I'm going. Sounds pretty cool, right? But I'm just playing a B flat 7, just up and down, mixing up some rhythms in there to make it sound a little bit more interesting. And when it comes to my walking bass line, I've got that under my fingers because I practiced it. That was just sort of what I was doing before, but a bit of a busy one there, kind of like a Ray Brown type of a intricate fill there. There's your E flat 7. diminished. Then we've got a little descending moment from B flat 7 to G7. You don't always have to hit the root of the next chord. 2 B flats, 2 A flats, so that's my 1 bar of this B flat 7. I'm just continuing that descending motion. Contour in walking bass lines is an important concept. So you think about a mountain, you know, we're going up, down. Here I'm just concentrating on going down, so. Then we've got a C minor 7. Now I'm on an F here, and I could just drop down to a C, but I'm actually just going to keep the descending idea going. I'm on an E flat. Now that's the flat third of a C minor 7. And it's totally fine to go there. You don't have to hit the root all the time. As bass players in many different styles like rock, funk, pop, that is probably the most important note, the root. In jazz, it still is, I would say, as a bass player, but you can land on any one of the other chord tones, and what you will find if you do that is smoother lines. Okay, so always think about that. If you know the arpeggio really well, then you'll know under your fingers which one's which. I find when it comes to jazz in particular, you really, really need to understand the theory that's behind things, okay? There definitely are jazz players, the greatest of all time, that perhaps don't know all this theory, but what they do have is this like incredible ear, and they know, hear that chord, it's this. They might not know it's a mixolydian or whatever, but they certainly know where to play it everywhere, okay? So I'm advocating just learning a little bit of theory like this. When I'm saying 2-5-1, you need to know what that means. When I'm saying, you know, a mixolydian, you need to know what that is. And obviously that's going to take you a little bit of time to do. I would recommend, you know, like a piece of paper or a journal where you're writing down when you're coming across videos like this, or books or courses or whatever you come across, you know, that comes into your life, just put it in a little book of things you need to learn. There's always a little bit of study period, you know, that has to happen when you learn something new, and that's what practicing is for. But I love just actually making music with these things, and that's what we're doing here. I mean, I really, really could go on, and I know I have, and I'm sorry for that, but I'm going to stop, and hopefully you've got enough ideas from this lesson to download the PDF and the backing track, and just really try and get your head around this slowly. Use roots and fifths, then start to use chromaticism, piece things together slowly but surely, and you'll get a lot from it. If you did get anything from that lesson, please do subscribe to the channel, like and share the video. Any questions you have, let me know down below in the comments. I'll see you on the next video.